Before we go any further, hit subscribe, because stories like this don't end the way you think they will. The convoy was already moving when the first call came in. Target missing. Repeat, target missing. Sirens tore through the dry desert air as black SUVs accelerated down the highway, dust kicking up behind them. Inside one of those vehicles, U.S. Marshals exchanged glances that said everything without a word. This wasn't just another escape. This was him, Daniel Navarro. The man who had already escaped twice, the first time. It happened inside one of Mexico's most secure prisons. No explosions, no violence, just a routine headcount that ended with one empty cell. Surveillance footage showed nothing unusual. Guards swore everything was normal, until it wasn't. By the time they realized he was gone, Navarro had already vanished into the city. The second escape was worse. Different prison, higher security, more guards, more cameras. And yet, the same result, an empty cell, no signs of forced entry, no damaged locks, just a system that had somehow failed at the exact moment he needed it to. Authorities were no longer calling it luck, they called it a pattern, and patterns could be dangerous. That's when the United States stepped in. Navarro wasn't just a fugitive anymore, he was a threat. If he could break to maximum security prisons, what was stopping him from doing it again? The answer was supposed to be simple. ADX Florence. The most secure prison in the world. A place designed for inmates who could not be trusted anywhere else. A facility built not just to contain bodies but to eliminate opportunity. The transfer was handled with extreme caution. Multiple vehicles. Armed escorts. Constant communication. No room for mistakes. Because everyone knew, Navarro didn't need chaos. He only needed one small error. When they finally arrived, the gates of ADX Florence closed behind him with a heavy, final sound. Inside, everything changed. Navarro was placed in a single concrete cell. No bars. No visible weaknesses. Just solid walls, a steel door, and a narrow window that showed nothing but sky. 23 hours a day, alone. The remaining hour, controlled movement, monitored from every angle. No contact. No conversation. No patterns. For the first time since his capture, Daniel Navarro had no access to the one thing that made him dangerous. People. Weeks passed. Then months. Guards watched him carefully. Every move, every glance, every second. They expected something, a signal, a plan. But nothing came. Navarro didn't test the system. He didn't study routines. He didn't even try. He just sat there, silent. Observing. Or maybe, waiting. That silence began to worry investigators more than his escapes ever did. Because men like Navarro didn't stop. They adapted. A federal task force began reviewing his past. Every escape. Every movement. Every detail. And that's when they noticed something no one had seen before. Both prisons he escaped from had one thing in common. Not weak walls, not broken systems, people, specific guards, specific shifts, specific moments where human behavior became predictable. Navarro hadn't escaped the prisons. He had escaped the people inside them. That realization changed everything, because inside ADX Florence, human interaction was almost non-existent. Doors were controlled remotely, movements were scheduled by system, communication was limited to almost nothing. It was the perfect environment to stop someone like him, or so they thought. 3 months into his stay, something unusual happened. A routine system check flagged a minor anomaly. Cell door 312. Daniel Navarro's cell. It had opened, not fully, just 3 inches, for exactly 2 seconds. Then, it closed. No alarms, no alerts, no explanation. At first, they assumed it was a glitch, but when they pulled the logs, there was no record of the door ever opening, no command, no error, nothing. And when they checked the camera footage, Navarro was standing right in front of the door, waiting, because when they zoomed in on the frame, they saw it. He was smiling. And in that moment, every investigator in the room realized the same thing. He hadn't stopped trying to escape. He had just changed the way he was playing the game. But what they discovered next would change everything. The room went silent as the footage replayed for the third time.
This footage is...
Daniel Navarro stood inches from the steel door, his face calm, almost patient. Not surprised, not confused. Waiting. That was the detail no one could ignore. Because if the door opening had truly been a random glitch, Navarro wouldn't have been standing there at that exact moment. He would have been asleep, sitting, anywhere else. But he wasn't. He was ready. The investigation shifted immediately. This was no longer about a system malfunction. This was intent. A full internal review was launched inside ADX Florence. Engineers, federal agents, and intelligence analysts were brought in. Every line of code, every security layer, every control system was dissected. ADX Florence wasn't just secure, it was engineered to eliminate unpredictability. Doors were controlled from a central command. No manual overrides, no physical keys. Every action required authorization. Logged and tracked. So how did a door open without existing in the system at all? The first theory was sabotage, someone on the inside. But background checks on staff came back clean. No suspicious finances, no unusual behavior, no signs of coercion. Still, something didn't add up. Then came the second discovery. 3 days before the incident, a maintenance request had been logged. Routine system calibration. Nothing unusual until they looked closer. The request had been approved automatically through the system. No supervisor signature, no technician assigned. It was as if the system had approved itself. And buried inside that request was a temporary override protocol. 2 seconds of unlocked access. Exactly 2 seconds. The same duration as the door opening. Now it wasn't just suspicious. It was precise. Someone or something had created a window, and Navarro had been there to meet it. Investigators began digging deeper into Navarro's past, not just his escapes, but his life before prison. That's when they uncovered something that had been overlooked. Before his arrest, Navarro had worked as a systems technician, not just any technician. He specialized in automated security infrastructures, access control systems, surveillance networks, the same type of systems used inside high-security facilities. Suddenly, the pattern made sense. Navarro didn't break prisons, he understood them. Every escape, every disappearance. It wasn't about force, it was about exploiting the smallest, almost invisible gaps in complex systems. But ADX Florence was supposed to be different, more advanced, more controlled, more isolated. And yet, something inside that system had responded to him. The question was how. Then came the moment that changed the entire investigation. A digital forensics analyst noticed a fragment of code buried deep within the system logs. It wasn't large, just a few lines. But it didn't belong there. It had no timestamp, no origin, no recorded input. And when they ran it through analysis, it triggered a controlled micro-delay in door locking mechanisms. 2 seconds. It wasn't an accident, it was a trigger. And it had been sitting inside the system, waiting, the room filled with tension as one possibility became impossible to ignore. Navarro hadn't created the breach from inside. He couldn't. He had no access, no tools, no communication, which meant only one thing made sense. The system had been compromised. Before he ever arrived, someone had planted it, someone who knew he was coming, someone who understood exactly what he needed. And suddenly, this wasn't about a prisoner trying to escape anymore. This was coordination. A plan that started long before Navarro stepped inside ADX Florence. The timeline was reconstructed. The code had been embedded weeks before his transfer. Hidden, silent, indetectable, waiting for activation, waiting for him, which raised the most dangerous question yet: who inside or outside would go to that level of precision for one man? And more importantly, why? As investigators scrambled to trace the origin of the code, another alert came through. Different cell block, different inmate. Another door had opened, same duration, 2 seconds, but this time, the inmate inside wasn't Daniel Navarro. And when guards rushed to the scene, the cell wasn't empty, it was covered in markings, scratches. Across the walls, lines, symbols, patterns carved into concrete. At first, it looked random, until someone stepped back and saw the full image. It wasn't random at all. It was a map, and at the center of that map was Navarro's cell. The map didn't look like a map at first, just scratches, lines, jagged symbols carved into concrete by a man who had nothing but time. But when investigators overlaid it with the prison's architectural layout, everything aligned. Corridors, security checkpoints, door sequences, even blind timing gaps between automated locks. At the center of it all, cell 312, Daniel Navarro. The room filled with a kind of silence that only comes when something impossible starts to make sense. This wasn't just a prisoner planning an escape. This was a system being studied, from the inside and the outside at the same time. The second inmate, the one who carved the map, was pulled into isolation immediately. His name was Marcus Hale, a low-profile inmate transferred months earlier. No violent history. No known connections to Navarro, at least, on paper, under interrogation. Hale said nothing, not a word. But his cell told a different story. Hidden beneath the scratches, barely visible unless you knew where to look, were tiny numerical sequences. Patterns repeating across different sections of the wall. Coordinates, not of the prison, of time. Every number corresponded to seconds, delays, intervals between automated processes. It was a schedule, a living, breathing rhythm of the prison itself. And Navarro had learned it. Investigators rushed back to the system logs, the embedded code, the 2-second openings, the missing timestamps. They weren't random intrusions, they were synchronized. The code created the opportunity, the prison's own system created the timing, and inside, Navarro and Hale were mapping the rhythm-turning structure into vulnerability. For the first time, ADX Florence wasn't being attacked from the outside, it was being understood. And understanding a system is the first step to breaking it. The immediate response was lockdown. Full restriction, no movement, no exceptions, every inmate sealed, every system monitored in real time. The assumption was simple: whatever plan existed, it needed time. So they removed time. But that's when the third anomaly appeared. No doors opened, no alarms triggered, nothing physical changed. Yet something had been accessed, a restricted internal channel used only for system diagnostics had been activated for less than a second. No commands issued, just a signal, a handshake, sent from inside the prison to somewhere outside. That's when everything shifted. This wasn't just an escape plan, it was communication. Navarro wasn't trying to get out, he was trying to connect. A joint federal investigation was launched immediately. Cyber units, intelligence agencies, internal security. Everyone focused on one question: who was on the other end? The trace came back incomplete, routed through layers of encrypted networks, hidden behind dead ends and false paths. But one detail slipped through: a timestamp, matched to a location. Not far from the prison, a facility, abandoned, or at least, officially, a team was sent in. What they found inside wasn't abandoned at all. It was active. Screens, servers, live data feeds. And on one of those screens, a real-time schematic of ADX Florence, updated, precise, alive. Whoever was running this wasn't guessing, they were watching. And at the center of every feed was cell 312, Navarro's cell. But the most disturbing part wasn't the surveillance, it was the timeline displayed beside it. A sequence of events, not past, future, predicted system behaviors, door cycles, micro-delays, moments where the prison would hesitate, to seconds at a time. And at the very bottom of that screen was a single line: Phase 2, exit. Back inside ADX Florence, guards rushed to Navarro's cell, for the first time since his arrival. He was standing, not waiting, moving, slowly pacing the exact length of his cell, counting under his breath. Seconds, timing, the system. But when they opened the observation panel, something felt wrong. Navarro wasn't looking at the door. He was looking directly at the camera, like he knew they were watching, like he had been waiting for this moment. Then he stopped, smiled, and mouthed 2 words. Too late. The facility outside was shut down within hours. Servers seized, data wiped, no suspects found. Inside ADX Florence, every system was reset, reinforced, rebuilt. Officials called it contained. A breach that had been stopped before anything could happen, but they couldn't explain one thing. At exactly 2:17 a.m. during the reset, every cell door in one corridor unlocked simultaneously for 2 seconds. And when the locks re-engaged, everything looked normal. Every inmate accounted for, every cell secured, except one, Cell 312, Daniel Navarro, was still inside, sitting calmly on his bed. Exactly where he was supposed to be. No escape, no trace, no evidence anything had changed. But when they reviewed the footage frame by frame, there was a moment, just one frame, where the cell was empty. Gone. Then he was back again. Like nothing ever happened. Officials buried the report, classified the incident, closed the case, because some questions don't have answers there. Willing to accept, and somewhere in that system perfect, controlled, untouchable, a man proved something no one could ignore. He didn't need to escape. He just needed to show that he could. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one.